Hi guys, welcome back. I am continuing the series that I started probably a couple of years back, where I was creating videos in order to communicate some tips about oxygen not included. And the game obviously changes a lot, new things get added all the time, new functionality. This one is actually spaced out, so that's the one I'm playing here. You can see it here from the planetoids basically. And that's a little bit of an older game that I was playing. It's a cycle close to 900. But in this specific tutorial, I kind of wanted to explain a simple, easy way to cool water. And obviously, as I mentioned, things change in the game. There are multiple ways to achieve specific things. For example, you could do it with wizards. Is another solution. Is a little bit more cumbersome. And the output is not the same, I guess, the water output or the liquid output. But obviously, one of the most important things in the game is finding a quick way and a little bit of a more elaborate way, actually, in this case, to cool down water, cool water down. Obviously, this is important because you need it for crops, for example, many other things. Like here, for example, the body temperature I can see is 31. So I don't know if I have attended to that. It's been a while. I don't really remember, but this comes out as 28 here. So this is fixable for sure. But I still want to explain how to do this thing with cooling down the water, and I want to be explaining things in a simple way so that people can remember it for their own games. So I don't want to get like super technical or explain the various aspects of the game in detail, because it doesn't really matter. But what matters is that you understand some basic parts of the game so that you can utilize them the proper way. Like, for example, what exactly the thermal aqua tuner does, and what exactly the steam turbine does, and how they can combine in order to create a pool of water that's actually chillier, cooler, as you can see here, for example, which is 15 degrees Celsius. And you can see here it's 32, so that's a pretty big difference over here. You can probably see it here as well with the colors. So how do we do that? So in this case, at this point actually, let me start and explain a few things about the thermal aqua tuner. So the thermal aqua tuner is basically a machine that uses quite a lot of power, but power is kind of easy to come by. In this specific one, you can make a lot of solar panels in Oni. In the spaced out version, it's been a little bit more difficult. It has been patched a little bit to make it a little bit tougher in terms of research. I think it requires nuclear research. Anyway, that's not the point. This tutorial basically assumes that you have power, obviously, and you can utilize the aqua tuner and the turbines here, which do not really require power, but they can generate power. So you do want a different line of power, but you don't want the one that gets produced by these steam turbines, because they're not going to be used all the time. So the aqua tuner does a very simple thing actually. It receives some liquid, let's say as you can see here in 15 degrees, 0.4, and does some cooling, and then generates the same amount of liquid basically, but cooler, much cooler. As you can see, it's about 12 degrees here, 10 degrees basically, probably 12. So probably about 12 degrees Celsius. And you can, oops, sorry, let's see it here. Actually, we cannot see we cannot really see it in color, but yeah, you can see here 15.6 and coming out as 2.9, 1.3, so about 14 to 15. So this comes out as 2 Celsius right now. So it basically cools down liquid. Now, when it cools down liquids, it doesn't actually evaporate the heat. It emits it itself. So as you can see here, this is getting heated here. It's created by steel, because steel can withstand a lot of heat, so that the machine doesn't break down, and it emits a lot of heat. Now, over here you see there is steam. So there was a pool of water here, which it reached the temperature of more than 100 degrees, and it becomes steam, right? As you would expect, and it's enclosed. It's like a little area here for the aqua tuner, and the pipes here go outside of that. So what's the point of that, you're saying? So as this thing processes liquid and cools it down, it gets heated. So it needs to it does generate a lot of heat that it needs to at some point it needs to cool down. And the way to cool it down, the thermoaqua tuner, is using steam turbines. So a steam turbine basically operates in a simple way, which can be a little bit daunting at first, but it's actually pretty simple. So below that, you can see the turbine here. The turbines here is like five different outputs here. It receives some steam, and the moment the steam heat gets heated to more than 125 Celsius. Right now you see the steam temperature is below 125. So as this gets more and more heated, it will start working. And the moment this starts working, it actually throws back cold air. Think about it this way. So it cools down the steam, basically. And as the steam gets cooled down, if it reaches below 100, it's gonna become water. So you see there is some water here. It's below 100 over here. In this very little area here, it's actually below 100, so it's actually water. It has liquidated, and so this is basically a loop. So this gets heated, produces steam, and as the steam rises to more than 125 Celsius, this starts working and basically deletes the heat by making the steam cooler and eventually turning it even to water if it gets cool enough. But it will remain below 125, basically. That's the point. And so this machine here will never get overheated. And basically this can be a loop here. So this crude oil here goes around, as you can see, and comes over here, and basically does the whole thing where it goes around, and every time it comes through the aqua tuner, it gets cooler and cooler. Now, what's happening here? You see that it comes out as 1.3, and I'm using the insulated liquid pipes here, so that the heat is retained inside the pipes as much as possible. That's not 100%, but because you see it's still rising a little bit, but it's good enough. So over here it's like what is it, like 4.1, and now it enters the body of water here. Now the water is, as you can see here, is 39 degrees Celsius, so it's actually kind of warm over here. However, the pipes are insulated, so there is not enough heat transfer. So, and that's on purpose, obviously, because I don't mind this specific body of water to be hotter. I don't care about this specific part. Now, when it reaches here, though, I'm using the radiant liquid pipes. These ones are actually the specific pipes. You create them when you want to transmit heat. So right here, you see that the crude oil is 6.1, and when it enters the radiant liquid pipe, it immediately goes to 15.4. That's because it starts emitting heat, and so there's a heat transfer between the actual pipe and the body of water here. So think about it as this specific body of water here, basically, where the whole cooling down happens. And so you can see here that the temperature overlay starts going down in terms of water. Water is 15 Celsius here, as you can see, and it's about 17 Celsius here. So basically the heat transfer happens here. The crude oil that runs through the pipes cools down the water in these specific areas over here. That's the cooling mechanism. And when it goes out over here, it's still at 15 degrees, but we don't really care. So it's like we're using the insulated tiles, and then take it, because we don't want to make it hotter from the environment. There's no point in that. And just take it back to our aqua tuner. And you see here I just have some automation, like the liquid pipe thermosensor. It's some automation here that's basically just connected to the thermoaqua tuner, and it tells it, so whenever the ambient temperature is above 15 Celsius, right? So if it's getting hot, basically that's what it says. It's going above 15. Start operating the aqua tuner. Otherwise, we're basically saying it's not hot enough, so we don't really care. We don't want it to operate. So over here it's 16.4. But here, you see, it's 14.8, so it's still not hot enough for this to operate. Eventually, as the whole loop goes through, it will get hotter, and you can see that if I operate it a little bit. it will eventually get hotter, obviously, because the water gets hotter and hotter. Actually, in this specific case, it may not get hotter just because the water is it gets mildly hotter, because the water is already kind of cool enough. So the water doesn't get affected. No new water is entered over here in this pool of water. So it will happen because I think I had some sort of container here where I was sending some water over here, but at this point, I think I have to close this down. So I was sending some water over because this was very hot water actually, and you can see it. So it started from a steam vent. So I was sending it actually, this one is not from a steam vent, but I think I was sending from here as well. This one is 93. You can even do it this kind of hot. You can make this cool as well. So if you can send it over here, and I did send some over there, from there over here. So you can actually send this over here and use the exact same mechanism to cool it. And now you see here, this is 16.4, so now this is working. So the operation has started. And you see here, just because the steam is getting warmer and warmer, it was more than 125, this was working. So eventually it will get to 125 again as this continues working, and these steam turbines will operate again. Now, you could potentially even do it with one steam turbine. Not sure why I made two here. It's probably a little bit of a better output. This doesn't get that hot that it should require two, but I guess it's okay. I mean, it's not a big deal. You can make this from lead, basically. It's pretty simple. I think you need some steel though. That's the only cumbersome part. But that's how the whole thing works. And you can see that you can basically use the exact same mechanism here to create like a cool box, for example. So you can create a cool box of water, for example. Or you can create a cool area. Like you could have radiant pipes over here as well. So this cools down the whole area. And I can probably make another tutorial about this. This is another known way to cool down loops. Like you see, this is cooler here. So this cools down the whole area if you create a radiant pipe, actually. Even if you don't, it still cools down the area a little bit. But with radiant pipes, it's going to be much cooler. And so this is extremely useful when you want to be creating some refinement stuff, like which gets pretty hot, like the metal refinery, for example, or the polymer press. You can create a loop like this. And I guess, as I mentioned, I'm going to create another video about this. It's a known thing. It's a known technique, basically. And you just basically cool down an area. You can not only cool down water necessarily, but or gases as well. You can also cool down gases, anything really. Now you may be wondering why I'm using crude oil. Like, why is this thing running on crude oil? So there is a reason for that, actually, and it's a pretty important reason, and that has to do with heat transfer. And let me find it here. So thermal conductivity, which is basically a little bit of physics, I guess, the rate of heat transfer. So how quickly heat gets transferred from the material to outside, basically. So this is 35, as you see here, thermal conductivity. So crude oil is 35. Let's take a look at water. Water thermal conductivity is 0.609. You see the difference is like more than 35 times more thermally conductive. This means that it transfers heat much more easily and way faster. So it's actually one of the best heat transfer elements that you can use liquids in the game. Obviously there's like supercoolant as well, for instance, but if you don't have that, which you probably won't, at least in the early game, you can just use crude oil, which is kind of abundant. A little bit later, I guess, but still. So yeah, that's the whole thing that I wanted to describe with this tutorial. Hopefully that makes sense. I mean, it's a simple concept, but you have to be a little bit aware of that. You have to be acquainted with it. And if somebody hasn't shown it to you, you may not think about this. And so yeah, hopefully that helped you a little bit. It definitely helps me a lot. This is a very important part of my colonies. One of the things that I always make these kinds of loops because they help me with cooling down stuff. And I use it in geysers as well, which I can make another tutorial for, just to explain how to efficiently handle a geyser so that you get 100% of water out of it. That's another thing. So yeah, expect more tutorials, I guess. And thank you for watching this. And it's good to be back and create more tip videos, which is one of the series that I really enjoyed making. So have a great time. Please remember to subscribe and like, because there's gonna be more videos about Oni and more tips. And so thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.